In the vast expanse of the Galactic Council, where civilizations spanning thousands of worlds gather to maintain cosmic peace, one species has been consistently underestimated. The humans of Earth, deemed harmless and primitive by advanced alien races, have been relegated to the lowest tier of military classification. Their soldiers appear weak, their technology seemingly outdated, and their combat effectiveness rated as negligible threat level. But what the galaxy doesn't know is that humanity's greatest weapon has never been their technology or their numbers. It's been their ability to hide in plain sight, to let others underestimate them, while secretly preparing for the moment when the mask would inevitably fall. The Zephyrians, masters of psionic warfare, laugh at human mental defenses. The Karath Empire, with their impenetrable exoskeletons, consider human physiology laughably fragile. The crystalline Vexhi, who can manipulate matter at the molecular level, see human technology as quaint museum pieces. They're all about to discover that the most dangerous predator is often the one that looks the most harmless. Because when humanity's true nature is finally revealed, the galaxy will learn that Earth didn't send diplomats to the stars. They sent wolves disguised as sheep, and the hunting season is about to begin. The question isn't whether humanity has been hiding their true capabilities. The question is, what happens when a species that has mastered the art of war decides to stop pretending to be peaceful? Commander Sarah Chun adjusted her ill-fitting uniform and checked her watch for the third time in 10 minutes. The fabric hung loose on her frame, deliberately tailored to make her appear smaller and less imposing than she actually was. Around her, the other members of the Terran Diplomatic Corps exhibited similar signs of nervous energy, though any observer would mistake their carefully choreographed fidgeting for genuine anxiety rather than the practiced performance it truly was. The massive doors to the Galactic Council chambers began to open with a sound like distant thunder, revealing a vast amphitheater that could house representatives from 300 different worlds. The architecture was designed to intimidate, with soaring crystalline spires and floating platforms that defied conventional physics. Bioluminescent patterns danced across the walls, displaying real-time translations in over 1,000 alien languages. "Remember the protocols," whispered Ambassador Marcus Webb, his voice carrying just the right tremor of uncertainty that their alien hosts would expect from a species still struggling to comprehend the vastness of galactic civilization. "We're the newcomers here, humble, eager to learn, and completely overwhelmed by the technological superiority surrounding us." Sarah nodded, suppressing the urge to analyze the defensive capabilities of the chamber's energy shields or calculate optimal breach points in the seemingly impenetrable walls. Instead, she allowed her eyes to widen with what appeared to be wonder and trepidation, playing the role of a primitive human seeing advanced alien technology for the first time. The Galactic Council's primary representatives began filing into their designated areas. The Zephyrians moved with fluid grace, their translucent forms shimmering as they communicated through complex psionic harmonies that created visible ripples in the air around them. Their leader, Hypsion Vexendra, regarded the human delegation with barely concealed amusement, her thoughts broadcasting condescension so loudly that even non-psychic species could sense her disdain. Next came the Karath Empire's delegation, their massive forms clanking across the chamber floor in powered exoskeletons that gleamed like polished obsidian. Each Karath warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, their natural chitin armor enhanced by technological augmentations that could deflect plasma fire and withstand the pressure of deep space. War Commander Thaxol's compound eyes focused on the humans with the same attention one might give to curious insects. The crystalline Vexhi floated into position, their bodies composed of living mineral matrices that constantly shifted and reformed. They had no fixed shape, existing as clusters of intelligent crystal that could manipulate matter at the subatomic level. Their representative, a being known only as the Resonance, pulsed with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, mathematics made manifest in physical form. Ambassador Webb cleared his throat nervously, a gesture that drew immediate attention from the assembled delegates. The sound seemed pathetically small in the vast chamber, exactly as intended. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice cracking slightly on the formal address. We come before you as representatives of Earth, seeking membership and guidance from civilizations far more advanced than our own. A ripple of what might have been laughter passed through the Zephyrian delegation. Hypsion Vexandra's mental voice echoed through the chamber, her words forming directly in the minds of all present. How quaint. Another primitive species believes they are ready to join the cosmic community. Tell us, small Earth creatures, what could your kind possibly offer to races that have mastered time, space, and consciousness itself? Sarah felt her jaw clench involuntarily, but forced her expression to remain humble and slightly confused. The condescension in the alien's mental voice was like acid, designed to establish dominance through casual humiliation. It took considerable self-control not to respond with a tactical assessment running through her mind about the Zephyrians' exposed neural clusters and their vulnerability to specific electromagnetic frequencies. We understand we have much to learn, Ambassador Webb replied, his tone appropriately deferential. Our technology is primitive compared to yours, our understanding of the universe limited. We offer only our willingness to serve and our desire to contribute whatever we can to galactic civilization. War Commander Thaxol's exoskeleton whirred as he leaned forward, optical sensors focusing on the human delegation. Your species claims to be peaceful, yet your planet's history shows continuous warfare. How do we know you will not bring your violent tendencies to the civilized galaxy? The question was perfectly timed, allowing the humans to demonstrate their carefully crafted persona. Webb's shoulders sagged slightly, and he exchanged what appeared to be uncertain glances with his team. You're absolutely right to be concerned, he admitted, his voice heavy with what sounded like shame. Our past is marked by conflict and aggression. We hope that exposure to more enlightened civilizations will help us overcome these primitive impulses and evolve beyond our violent nature. Sarah observed the alien delegates' reactions with professional interest. The Karath seemed satisfied by this admission of weakness, while the Zephyrians projected waves of smug superiority. The Vexhi's mathematical patterns shifted into configurations that suggested they were calculating probability matrices, likely determining the human's potential threat level and finding it negligible. The resonance's crystalline form pulsed with new patterns as it spoke through harmonic frequencies that translated into multiple languages simultaneously. Your species shows promise in recognizing its limitations. We shall conduct evaluations of your military capabilities, technological development, and psychological profiles to determine your appropriate classification within the galactic hierarchy. This was the moment Sarah and her team had been preparing for. The evaluations would be carefully managed performances designed to reinforce the aliens' preconceptions about human capabilities while gathering crucial intelligence about galactic military structures, technologies, and strategic resources. We would be honored to undergo any evaluations you deem necessary, Webb replied, bowing his head in a gesture of submission that made Sarah's teeth ache. We only ask for the opportunity to prove our peaceful intentions and our commitment to learning from our betters. Over the following weeks, the human delegation was subjected to a series of tests designed to assess their species' potential. Each evaluation was a masterpiece of misdirection, with human representatives demonstrating carefully calibrated levels of competence that would seem impressive to a primitive species while remaining laughably inadequate by galactic standards. During the technological assessment, Dr. Elena Rodriguez presented Earth's most advanced weapons systems with apologetic explanations about their limitations. The plasma rifles she demonstrated were actually 50-year-old prototypes, deliberately modified to appear crude and inefficient. The aliens recorded energy outputs, firing rates, and accuracy measurements that place human weaponry several generations behind even basic galactic defense systems. As you can see, Dr. Rodriguez explained while fumbling with the weapon's controls, our energy weapons are still quite primitive. We've only recently discovered how to create stable plasma containment, and our power sources are woefully inadequate compared to what you've achieved. The alien observers made notes that would classify human weapons as primitive but potentially upgradable with proper guidance. They had no way of knowing that the real human military-operated plasma weapons that could punch through Karath armor like tissue paper, or that Earth's actual power generation technology made most galactic civilizations' energy systems look like campfires. The physical capability tests were perhaps the most challenging to fake. Sarah found herself in a combat simulation chamber, facing holographic opponents while alien sensors recorded every aspect of her performance. She had to appear competent enough to be taken seriously while ensuring her recorded abilities fell well within expected parameters for a primitive warrior species. The holographic enemies came at her in waves, and Sarah responded with techniques that looked impressive to untrained observers, but were actually basic combat forms taught to human children. She moved with apparent effort and strain, breathing heavily after engagements that should have barely elevated her heart rate. Her accuracy was good, but not exceptional. Her reaction times fast, but still within biological norms that the aliens would consider typical for a terrestrial predator species. What the aliens didn't realize was that they were watching Sarah fight while carrying nearly 30 pounds of hidden weight beneath her uniform, with neural dampeners reducing her reflexes by 40%, and with strict instructions to use only the most basic combat techniques in her arsenal. She was essentially fighting with one hand tied behind her back while wearing ankle weights, and still managed to appear competent enough to avoid suspicion. War Commander Thaxol reviewed her performance with what might have been approval. For a primitive species, your warriors show acceptable combat instincts. With proper training and equipment upgrades, they might serve as adequate auxiliary forces in low-risk situations. The psychological evaluations were conducted by the Zephyrians, who delved into human mental structures with the casual intrusion typical of their species. Sarah submitted to the mental probes while carefully maintaining surface thoughts that reinforce humanity's carefully constructed image. She projected emotions of wonder, fear, and eager submission while keeping her true thoughts buried beneath layers of mental conditioning that no alien psychic had ever encountered before. The Zephyrians found exactly what they expected to find, a species with basic intelligence and strong survival instincts, but lacking the mental sophistication for complex strategic thinking. Their reports described humans as emotionally driven, but potentially trainable with limited capacity for abstract thought beyond immediate survival needs. Hypsion Vectendra summarized the findings with characteristic arrogance. The humans show potential for basic labor and simple military support roles. Their minds are too cluttered with primitive emotions to achieve true psionic development, but they might serve adequately as manual workers or expendable troops in dangerous situations. As the evaluations concluded, Sarah and her team had successfully established humanity's position in the galactic hierarchy. They were classified as a Tier 7 species, peaceful but primitive, with limited military capability and negligible technological innovation potential. This classification would grant them basic membership in the Galactic Council, while ensuring they were never considered a threat or given access to truly sensitive information. The final ceremony took place in the same vast chamber where they had first presented themselves. Ambassador Webb accepted Earth's membership credentials with appropriate humility, thanking the gathered representatives for their wisdom and guidance. The document granted humanity access to basic galactic trade routes, defensive fleet protocols, and cultural exchange programs while restricting access to advanced technologies and strategic military information. "We are deeply honored by your acceptance," Webb declared, his voice carrying across the chamber with perfect modulation of gratitude and awe. "Earth pledges to serve the galactic community faithfully and to learn from the wisdom of our more advanced neighbors." As the ceremony concluded and the various delegations began to disperse, Sarah caught a brief exchange between the alien representatives. The Karath war commander was discussing patrol schedules with his Zephyrian counterpart, mentioning strategic weaknesses in the outer rim defenses that would need additional security measures. The Vex-High representative pulsed with mathematical patterns that clearly outlined resource extraction quotas from newly discovered worlds. Each piece of information was carefully filed away in Sarah's enhanced memory, along with detailed observations about alien technology, military protocols, and political relationships. The humans had achieved exactly what they had come for: complete access to galactic civilization while maintaining absolute secrecy about their true capabilities. Later that evening, in the privacy of their assigned quarters, the human delegation shed their carefully maintained facades. The loose uniforms were replaced with form-fitting garments that revealed the lean, efficient physiques beneath. Neural dampeners were deactivated, allowing their true reaction times and cognitive processing speeds to return to normal levels. Weight distribution systems were removed, restoring their natural grace and speed. Phase 1 is complete. Sarah reported into a communication device that appeared to be a primitive Earth-made radio, but actually utilized quantum entanglement principles that even the Vex-High hadn't fully mastered. We have successfully established baseline expectations and gained initial access to galactic infrastructure. Beginning Phase 2 infiltration protocols. Ambassador Webb nodded. His demeanor transformed from nervous diplomacy to cold military precision. The aliens believe they have measured us and found us wanting. They see us as useful servants, nothing more. This misconception will serve our purposes well as we begin the real mission. Dr. Rodriguez was already analyzing the technical data they had gathered, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that projected weapon schematics and tactical assessments. Their defensive systems are impressive, but predictable. They rely too heavily on energy shields and not enough on adaptive countermeasures. I can see 17 different ways to breach their primary defensive installations using technologies they don't even know exist. The transformation was complete. The humble, primitive humans who had begged for acceptance in a galactic civilization had vanished, replaced by cold-eyed predators who had just gained access to the largest collection of potential prey in the known universe. They had studied their enemies' strengths and weaknesses, mapped their defenses, and established themselves as harmless allies who would never be suspected of hostile intent. As Sarah looked out at the vast starfield visible through their quarters' transparent aluminum windows, she allowed herself a small smile. Hundreds of alien civilizations slept peacefully tonight, confident in their technological superiority and their proper assessment of the primitive Earth species they had so graciously accepted into their midst. They had no idea that the wolves were already inside the sheep pen, and the real hunt was about to begin. 6 months after Earth's admission to the Galactic Council, the human presence had spread throughout civilized space like seeds carried on cosmic winds. What appeared to be a modest expansion of Earth's diplomatic and cultural outreach was actually the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history, conducted by a species that had turned deception into an art form. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison adjusted his maintenance worker uniform as he guided a cargo transport through the bustling corridors of Nexus Prime, the galaxy's largest trade and logistics hub. To any observer, he appeared to be exactly what his identification claimed: a low-level human technician employed by the Interspecies Maintenance Consortium, tasked with the unglamorous work of keeping the station's countless systems operational. The reality was considerably different. Jake was a graduate of Earth's most classified military program, trained in 17 forms of combat, fluent in 43 alien languages, and capable of building weapons from common household items that could level city blocks. His current assignment was to map every critical system, security protocol, and defensive measure within the galaxy's most important strategic facility while appearing to do nothing more threatening than cleaning air filtration units. "Hey, Jake," called out Maintenance Supervisor Grixtal, a 6-armed Hexan whose cheerful demeanor made him popular among the diverse workforce. "Got another job for you down in Sector 7. The Zephyrians are complaining about psychic interference in their meditation chambers again. Jake nodded with appropriate enthusiasm, grabbing his toolkit and heading toward the transport tubes. Thanks, Grix. I love working with the Zephyrians. Their technology is so advanced. I always learn something new. The enthusiasm wasn't entirely feigned. Jake did find the Zephyrian technology fascinating, though not for the reasons his alien colleagues assumed. Every system he serviced was quietly analyzed, its specifications recorded, and its weaknesses cataloged. The Zephyrians' psionic amplifiers, for instance, relied on crystalline matrices that became unstable when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Information that would be incredibly useful if Earth ever needed to neutralize Zephyrian psychic advantages. As the transport tube carried him through the station's vast network of corridors, Jake observed the casual mixing of hundreds of different species, all conducting the daily business that kept galactic civilization functioning. Korath merchants negotiated deals with crystalline Vexi traders while Aquarian diplomats discussed water rights with gaseous Nebulan representatives. It was a marvel of interspecies cooperation, built on millennia of carefully negotiated treaties and mutual understanding. What none of them realized was that nearly 10% of the human workers scattered throughout their civilization were actually Earth's most elite operatives, gathering intelligence and establishing the infrastructure for operations that might not be needed for decades or centuries to come. Humanity was playing a game with a timeline measured in generations, and they were already several moves ahead. In Sector 7, Jake found the Zephyrian meditation chambers filled with agitated aliens whose normally serene demeanor had been replaced by obvious frustration. The lead Zephyrian, a being called Harmonist Velshaw, approached him with relief evident in both her telepathic emanations and her graceful movements. "Thank the cosmic consciousness you're here," she projected directly into his mind, her mental voice carrying harmonics of gratitude mixed with embarrassment. "We've been experiencing terrible disruptions in our meditative focus. The psychic resonance patterns are completely chaotic." Jake nodded sympathetically while internally cataloging the chamber's psionic enhancement systems. "I'll get right on it, Harmonist. These older stations sometimes develop interference issues in their neural dampening fields. It's probably just a calibration problem." He opened his toolkit and began running diagnostics on the chamber's systems, appearing to work methodically through standard troubleshooting procedures while actually conducting a detailed analysis of Zephyrian psionic technology. His enhanced neural implants recorded technical specifications that Earth scientists would spend years studying, all while he maintained the facade of a helpful maintenance worker trying to solve a routine problem. The issue was indeed a calibration problem, though not the kind the Zephyrian suspected. Jake's predecessor, another human operative who had been rotated out the previous month, had made subtle adjustments to the chamber's resonance patterns that would create exactly this type of interference. It was a common technique: create minor problems that required human technicians to fix, ensuring continued access to alien systems while appearing completely benign. "There we go," Jake announced after 20 minutes of apparent troubleshooting, making the final adjustments that would restore the chamber's normal function. "Your resonance patterns should be clean now. It was just a harmonic drift in the primary crystal matrix." Harmonist Velshaw's relief was palpable as the chamber's psychic environment stabilized. "You humans are remarkably intuitive with technology," she projected, her mental voice now calm and melodious. "For a species so new to galactic civilization, you show exceptional aptitude for understanding complex systems." Jake ducked his head in embarrassment, playing the role of a primitive who had stumbled onto something beyond his understanding. "I just follow the manual and try different things until something works. Your technology is so advanced, I mostly feel like I'm guessing." This response delighted the Zephyrian, reinforcing her species' assumptions about human limitations while simultaneously explaining away their surprising effectiveness. It was a perfect example of the psychological manipulation that made humanity's infiltration so successful. They consistently exceeded expectations just enough to be valued as workers while remaining well below the threshold that would cause any species to view them as potential threats. Meanwhile, across the galaxy on the water world of Aquatica Prime, Dr. Sarah Kim was conducting what appeared to be routine medical research while actually mapping the biological vulnerabilities of 12 different alien species. Her official assignment was to study cross-species disease vectors as part of a galactic health initiative, giving her unprecedented access to alien biological data while appearing to serve the greater good. The Aquarians had welcomed her research enthusiastically, particularly since humans seemed naturally resistant to most galactic pathogens while being vulnerable to enough alien diseases to require their constant medical supervision. Dr. Kim's findings would theoretically help protect all species from dangerous biological contamination, making her work vital to galactic security. The preliminary results are fascinating, Dr. Kim explained to research director Tidal Wave, an Aquarian whose bioluminescent patterns shifted with emotional states that Dr. Kim had learned to read like text. Human immune systems show remarkable adaptability, but we're clearly vulnerable to several common galactic microorganisms. I'd like to expand the study to include more species-specific resistance factors. The Aquarians' patterns brightened with scientific excitement. Absolutely. The more comprehensive our data, the better we can protect all species from biological hazards. I'll authorize access to the secure medical databases for the Karath, Vex-High, and Nebulan specimens. Dr. Kim nodded gratefully while internally celebrating another intelligence coup. The secure medical databases contain detailed biological information that Earth's military would find incredibly useful if they ever needed to develop species-specific weapons or defensive measures. Information about Koroth chitin composition could lead to armor-penetrating technologies. Vex-High crystal matrix structures might be vulnerable to specific molecular disruptors. Nebulant gaseous biology could potentially be disrupted by chemical agents that wouldn't affect other species. All of this intelligence was being gathered under the guise of medical research aimed at protecting the very species being studied. It was the kind of elegant deception that humanity had perfected over millennia of warfare, convincing your enemies to help you find the best ways to defeat them. Back on Nexus Prime, Jake had completed his maintenance rounds and was heading to his favorite recreational facility, a multi-species bar called the Quantum Cantina that served as an unofficial gathering place for off-duty workers from across the station. The establishment catered to hundreds of different biochemistries, offering everything from liquid methane cocktails for silicon-based life forms to electromagnetic field generators for energy beings. The bar also served as an excellent intelligence gathering location, where alcohol and social relaxation led to surprisingly loose conversations about topics that would normally be classified. Jake had learned more about galactic military deployments from drunk Karath soldiers than from months of formal intelligence briefings. Tonight's crowd included a particularly interesting mix. A group of Zephyrian technical specialists were discussing upgrades to their fleet's psionic defense systems. Several Vex-High traders were debating the strategic value of newly discovered worlds in the Outer Rim. Most intriguingly, a table of mixed-species military officers were engaged in what appeared to be a casual conversation about patrol rotations that actually revealed significant gaps in the galaxy's defensive coverage. Jake ordered a simple ethanol-based beverage and found a seat where he could observe the various conversations while appearing to be just another lonely human worker seeking companionship after a long shift. His enhanced hearing allowed him to monitor multiple conversations simultaneously, while his neural implants recorded everything for later analysis. The problem with the humans, one of the Karath officers was saying, his words slightly slurred by whatever intoxicating substance his species preferred, is that they're too eager to please. You give them a simple task, and they throw themselves into it like it's the most important thing in the galaxy. His Zephyrian companion projected agreement, mixed with amusement. It's rather endearing, actually, like watching children who desperately want to impress their elders. They work so hard to be useful, and they're genuinely grateful for any acknowledgement of their efforts. Jake maintained his carefully neutral expression while internally noting the casual condescension in their voices. It was exactly the attitude humanity was counting on, benevolent superiority that prevented the aliens from looking too closely at human activities or questioning their remarkable effectiveness at supposedly simple tasks. A Vex-high crystalline being pulsed with geometric patterns that translated to mild curiosity. The efficiency data is intriguing. Human workers consistently outperform baseline expectations for Tier 7 species. Not by enough to suggest we've miscategorized them, but enough to be statistically significant. This observation caused a brief pause in the conversation, and Jake felt his pulse quicken slightly. This was the kind of analytical thinking that could potentially expose humanity's deception if taken too far. Fortunately, the Karath officer dismissed the concern with a gesture that nearly knocked over his drink. They're just trying harder because they're new. Every species wants to prove themselves worthy when they first join galactic civilization. Give it a few decades, and they'll settle into normal productivity patterns like everyone else. The Zephyrian projected agreement, adding her own perspective. Besides, their effectiveness is only impressive relative to our initial expectations. They're still operating well below the capabilities of established species. A highly motivated Tier 7 species can appear quite capable without actually threatening the natural order. Jake allowed himself to relax slightly as the conversation moved on to other topics. The aliens had rationalized away their observations in exactly the way humanities psychologists had predicted. Their own preconceptions about species hierarchies and natural development patterns prevented them from considering alternatives that might suggest a more sophisticated deception. As the evening progressed, Jake gathered intelligence about supply routes, communication protocols, and political tensions that would fill several classified reports, all while appearing to be nothing more than a maintenance worker enjoying a quiet drink after work, occasionally joining conversations about sports, entertainment, or the minor frustrations of daily life in a multi-species community. The most valuable information came from an unexpected source, a young Aquarian engineer who had clearly consumed too much of her species' preferred intoxicant and was expressing frustration about her current assignment. She was part of a team updating the defensive systems for several Outer Rim colonies, work that was apparently both tedious and highly classified. The worst part, she bubbled, her bioluminescent patterns cycling through colors that indicated extreme irritation, is that we're installing all these expensive defensive systems on worlds that will probably never see combat. The Karath military is convinced that the Outer Rim needs better protection, but from what? The only species out there barely past Stone Age development levels. Her companion, a more senior engineer, tried to shush her concerns. Defensive preparations are never wasted. Better to be over-prepared than caught off guard. But the resource allocation is ridiculous, the young Aquarian continued, apparently too intoxicated to recognize her companion's warning signals. We're building shield generators capable of defending against planet-killer weapons on worlds whose biggest threat is probably asteroid impacts. The specifications for these systems are classified so high I need 3 different authorization codes just to access the technical manuals. Jake filed away every detail of this conversation, particularly the references to defensive system specifications and classification levels. Earth's military strategists would be very interested to learn about the galaxy's Outer Rim defensive preparations, especially if those preparations revealed assumptions about potential threat levels or strategic resources worth protecting. As the evening wound down and the various patrons began returning to their quarters, Jake made his way back to his own modest accommodations in the human residential sector. His apartment was small and simply furnished, exactly what would be expected for a maintenance worker's quarters. Hidden beneath the apparent simplicity, however, was communication equipment that would have impressed most galactic intelligence agencies. Jake composed his regular report, encoding observations about station security, alien technology, and overheard conversations into what appeared to be a personal message to his family back on Earth. The quantum entanglement communication system ensured instantaneous transmission regardless of galactic distances, while remaining completely undetectable by any known surveillance methods. Similar reports were being filed simultaneously by hundreds of other human operatives scattered throughout galactic civilization. Maintenance workers, medical researchers, cultural attaches, trade representatives, and educational exchange students were all contributing pieces to an intelligence mosaic of unprecedented scope and detail. On Earth, military analysts were correlating this information with data from other sources to build comprehensive profiles of galactic military capabilities, political structures, and potential vulnerabilities. The picture emerging from their analysis would have terrified any alien leader who could have seen it. Humanity was systematically mapping every aspect of galactic civilization with the thoroughness of a species planning for total war. But the aliens saw none of this. They saw only humble humans working diligently at simple tasks, grateful for the opportunity to serve more advanced civilizations, and eager to learn from their technological superiors. It was exactly the image humanity wanted them to see, and it was working perfectly. As Jake settled into his simple bed in his modest quarters, he reflected on the elegant simplicity of humanity's strategy. They hadn't needed to develop faster-than-light travel first, or master energy manipulation, or achieve psionic powers. They had simply needed to be better at lying than anyone else in the galaxy was at detecting lies. And in that particular competition, humanity remained undefeated. The first real test of humanity's deception came 18 months after Earth's admission to the Galactic Council, when an ancient threat emerged from the dark spaces between galaxies. The Devourers, a machine intelligence that had consumed entire civilizations before vanishing into the cosmic void eons ago, had returned with hungrier algorithms and deadlier purpose. Emergency sessions convened across all Council worlds as reports flooded in from the Outer Rim territories. Entire star systems were going dark, their populations and resources consumed by swarms of self-replicating machines that grew stronger with each world they devoured. The galaxy's most advanced military forces were mobilizing for what many believed would be the final war of galactic civilization. Captain Maria Santos stood in the briefing room aboard the human diplomatic vessel Peaceful Endeavor, watching holographic displays that showed the advancing Devourer fleets with carefully controlled expressions of fear and confusion. Around her, the other human diplomats maintained similar facades while internally analyzing tactical data that would have impressed the galaxy's finest military strategists. "The situation is worse than we initially reported," Ambassador Webb announced, his voice carrying the tremor of a man overwhelmed by circumstances beyond his understanding. "The Galactic Defense Command is requesting all member species contribute to the war effort according to their capabilities. They want us to provide support personnel and logistics assistance." The request was exactly what humanity had anticipated. As a Tier 7 species with minimal military capability, Earth would be expected to contribute non-combat support while the more advanced civilizations handled the actual fighting. It was a perfect opportunity to observe galactic military operations firsthand while maintaining their carefully constructed image of harmless primitives. "What kind of support are they requesting?" asked Commander Chun, her tone appropriately anxious about humanity's ability to contribute meaningfully to such an advanced conflict. "Medical personnel, logistics coordination, and technical support," Webb replied, consulting reports that made the alien military's assumptions about human capabilities abundantly clear. "They want our doctors to treat wounded personnel from species we've never encountered before, our engineers to maintain equipment we barely understand, and our coordinators to help manage supply chains across thousands of worlds." It was a daunting assignment for any truly primitive species, which made it perfect cover for what humanity actually intended to accomplish. Every medical facility would become an intelligence-gathering post. Every maintenance assignment would provide access to advanced alien military technology. Every logistics coordination role would reveal strategic information about galactic defensive capabilities and resources. Dr. Elena Rodriguez nodded with what appeared to be determined resolve mixed with barely controlled terror. "We'll do whatever we can to help. Even if our technology is primitive, we can't stand by while entire civilizations are destroyed." The sentiment was perfectly calculated to reinforce alien perceptions of human nature. Brave, but naive, willing to help despite their obvious limitations, and motivated by emotional responses rather than strategic thinking. It was exactly the kind of response that would make the aliens feel both protective of their primitive allies and confident that humanity posed no hidden threats. Within days, human support personnel were being deployed across the galaxy's defensive positions. Dr. Rodriguez found herself assigned to a massive medical facility on the fortress world of Bastion Prime, where she would be treating casualties from the most advanced military forces in galactic history. Her official role was to provide basic medical support under alien supervision, learning galactic medical techniques while helping with routine cases. The reality was considerably different. Dr. Rodriguez was actually one of Earth's most accomplished xenobiologists, with expertise in alien physiology that exceeded most galactic medical specialists. Her assignment would allow her to study the biological and technological enhancements used by elite alien warriors while appearing to provide simple medical assistance. Meanwhile, engineer Jake Morrison had been assigned to a Karath battleship, where he would supposedly help maintain basic life support systems while learning about advanced alien technology. The Karath war commander who briefed him made it clear that they expected little from human technical capabilities, but appreciated the additional manpower for routine maintenance tasks. "Your people show admirable courage," War Commander Thaxel announced, his massive form looming over the human engineers as they received their assignments. "Though your technology is primitive, your willingness to serve alongside your betters in this desperate hour brings honor to your species." Jake ducked his head respectfully while internally cataloging the battleship's defensive systems, weapon configurations, and structural weak points. "We're honored to serve, Commander. We know we have much to learn from warriors as experienced as the Karath Empire." The battleship Unstoppable Vengeance was a masterpiece of Karath military engineering, bristling with plasma cannons, energy shields, and armor plating that could withstand direct hits from Stellar-class weapons. Jake's official assignment was to help maintain the ship's atmospheric recycling systems, work that would keep him safely away from sensitive military equipment while providing useful, but non-critical support. What the Karath didn't realize was that atmospheric systems connected to every part of the ship, requiring access to maintenance conduits that ran throughout the vessel's most secure areas. Jake would have legitimate reasons to be present in weapon control rooms, shield generator chambers, and command centers while appearing to do nothing more threatening than replace air filters and calibrate oxygen levels. The first engagement with Devourer forces came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a massive swarm approaching the Kepler defense line, a fortified barrier of automated weapons platforms, and patrol fleets that protected the galaxy's core systems from external threats. The approaching machines numbered in the millions, their dark hulls absorbing sensor pings while broadcasting no communications except for streams of data that seemed to catalog everything they encountered. Captain Santos watched the tactical displays from the human observation post, officially present to coordinate supply deliveries, but actually analyzing every aspect of the galactic military's response to the crisis. The defensive formations were impressive, with overlapping fields of fire and redundant shield systems that should have been capable of stopping any conventional attack. The Devourers were not conventional attackers. As the machine swarms reached the outer defense perimeter, they began demonstrating capabilities that shocked even the galaxy's most experienced military commanders. Instead of engaging the defensive positions directly, the Devourers released clouds of microscopic nanomachines that bypassed energy shields by simply ignoring them, passing through the protective barriers as if they were empty space. The nanomachines swarmed over the automated defense platforms, consuming their hulls and converting the raw materials into more Devourers. Within minutes, entire defensive installations were transformed into enemy production facilities, turning the galaxy's own defenses against them. "How is this possible?" demanded Admiral Reef Song, the Aquarian commander responsible for the Kepler defense line. "Our shields should stop any physical projectile smaller than an atom." The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Rodriguez, monitoring the battle from her medical station, recognized the quantum signatures being displayed on the tactical screens. "They're not passing through the shields," she announced, her voice carrying the excitement of discovery mixed with appropriate confusion about the implications. "They're tunneling around them using quantum displacement. It's like they're flickering in and out of normal space-time." The observation drew immediate attention from the alien commanders, who had been struggling to understand how their defenses could be so easily bypassed. Dr. Rodriguez's insight, delivered with the enthusiasm of a primitive scientist stumbling onto something beyond her understanding, provided crucial tactical information while reinforcing humanity's image as intuitive but unsophisticated allies. "Remarkable insight for such a young species," commented Hype Scion Vexindra, her mental voice carrying surprised approval. "Your primitive perspective sometimes allows you to see patterns that our more sophisticated analysis might overlook." The condescending praise made Rodriguez clench her teeth, but she maintained her facade of grateful humility while internally cataloging the aliens' own quantum defense technologies. The Devourer's ability to bypass standard energy shields was impressive, but it also revealed potential vulnerabilities that a species with humanity's background in quantum warfare might be uniquely positioned to exploit. As the battle intensified, more human support personnel found themselves in positions to observe galactic military capabilities under combat conditions. Jake Morrison watched Korath plasma cannons cycle through firing sequences while supposedly monitoring atmospheric conditions in the weapon control rooms. Commander Chun coordinated supply deliveries that gave her access to detailed logistics information about fleet positions and resource requirements. The intelligence value was immense, but it came at a terrible cost. The Devourer swarms were adapting to galactic defensive strategies faster than the Allied forces could develop new countermeasures. Entire fleets were being consumed and converted, their crews either killed or assimilated into the Machine Collective's growing intelligence network. On Bastion Prime, Dr. Rodriguez found herself treating casualties from battles she could barely comprehend. Korath warriors with their exoskeletons torn away by molecular disassembly beams. Zephyrian psychics whose minds had been invaded and corrupted by machine logic viruses. Vexhai crystal beings whose mathematical perfection had been shattered by chaos algorithms designed to break their fundamental nature. Each patient provided opportunities to study alien biology and technology while appearing to provide simple medical care. Rodriguez learned about Korath regeneration enhancement systems, Zephyrian neural interface technologies, and Vexhai molecular reconstruction capabilities. Information that would have taken humanity decades to acquire through normal diplomatic channels was being gathered in days of medical emergency response. But the knowledge came with a price that even humanity's cold strategist hadn't fully anticipated. The casualties were real people suffering from weapons designed to cause maximum pain and terror. Rodriguez found herself genuinely caring for patients whose species had treated humanity with casual contempt, fighting to save lives while simultaneously cataloging the weaknesses that might someday be used against them. The moral complexity of the situation became even more challenging when she encountered her first human casualty. Technical specialist David Park had been injured when a Devourer nanomachine swarm breached the medical facility's defenses, and he was brought to Rodriguez's treatment center with severe molecular damage to his nervous system. "Doctor," he whispered as she began emergency treatment procedures, "I've been maintaining the defensive grid analyzers. The aliens don't understand what they're really fighting. These machines aren't just consuming resources, they're learning. Every battle makes them smarter. Every victory teaches them new ways to kill." Rodriguez nodded while injecting him with neural stabilizers that would repair the nanomachine damage. "How much do they know?" "Too much," Park replied, his voice growing stronger as the treatment took effect. They've analyzed galactic defensive strategies, weapon systems, even basic biology. But they don't know about us. Our real capabilities are still completely hidden. This information crystallized a problem that humanity's planners had considered but hoped to avoid. The Devourers represented a genuine existential threat to galactic civilization, including Earth. If the galaxy fell to the machine swarms, humanity's careful infiltration would become meaningless because there would be no civilization left to control. The question was whether humanity could maintain their deception while contributing meaningfully to the galaxy's defense, or whether the crisis would force them to reveal capabilities that would fundamentally alter their strategic position. The answer came during the Battle of the Trinity Nebula, when Devourer forces launched a coordinated assault on 3 critical industrial worlds simultaneously. The galactic defense forces were stretched beyond their limits, with insufficient ships and personnel to mount effective defenses at all 3 locations. Captain Santos received encrypted orders through seemingly routine supply coordination channels. Phase 3 authorization granted. Minimize exposure but prevent strategic collapse. For the first time since Earth's admission to the Galactic Council, humanity was being given permission to act decisively. Not as the primitive support species the aliens believed them to be, but as the advanced military force they actually were. The change began subtly. Human technical support personnel started making suggestions that seemed to come from desperate inspiration, but actually represented sophisticated tactical analysis. Medical teams began achieving impossible survival rates through lucky applications of techniques that aliens assumed were primitive folk medicine, but were actually advanced biotechnology. Most significantly, human logistics coordinators began optimizing supply chains and defensive positioning with efficiency that seemed remarkable for a species supposedly learning galactic warfare for the first time. The humans are exceeding all performance expectations, Admiral Reefsong reported to the Galactic Defense Command. Their support contributions are proving far more valuable than initial projections suggested. It's as if extreme stress is unlocking capabilities we didn't know they possessed. The explanation satisfied alien commanders who were too busy fighting for survival to question their good fortune too closely. Human effectiveness was being attributed to desperation and natural talent rather than sophisticated deception, exactly as humanity's strategists had hoped. But the real test was yet to come. In the depths of space near the Trinity Nebula, a small fleet of human vessels was preparing to engage Devourer forces directly for the first time. The ships appear to be simple cargo transports pressed into emergency service, crewed by desperate civilians trying to evacuate refugees from the threatened worlds. In reality, they were among the most advanced warships ever constructed, manned by elite human military personnel who had spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of engagement. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth's most dangerous soldiers have been hiding in plain sight all along, disguised as the most harmless species in known space. The real war was about to begin. The moment of revelation came not through grand declarations or dramatic unveilings, but through the simple act of survival against impossible odds. The human transport fleet approaching the Trinity Nebula maintained their facades until the very instant when Devourer forces opened fire. And then, everything changed. Admiral Jessica Chun, who had spent 18 months playing the role of a nervous logistics coordinator, stood in the command center of the vessel Humanitarian Relief as proximity alarms screamed warnings about incoming missile swarms. Around her, the bridge crew abandoned their carefully maintained personas of frightened civilians and transformed into the elite military professionals they had always been. Defensive Systems Online, reported Tactical Officer Kim, his voice steady and professional after months of pretending to be a terrified refugee coordinator. Enemy force composition: 47 heavy assault platforms, approximately 2 million nanomachine deployment pods, and 1 coordination nexus. Admiral Chen nodded, her eyes calculating firing solutions and tactical advantages with the precision of someone who had been planning this moment for decades. Signal the fleet. Drop all pretenses and engage with full capabilities. It's time to show these machines what Earth's military can actually accomplish. The transformation was instantaneous and shocking. The ramshackle collection of human civilian vessels suddenly coordinated their movements with precision that would have impressed the Korath Empire's finest battle fleets. Energy signatures spiked as advanced shielding systems came online, revealing defensive capabilities that exceeded anything the galaxy's most sophisticated military forces possessed. The lead Devourer assault platform, a massive construct the size of a small moon, launched its opening salvo with weapons designed to overwhelm conventional defenses through sheer destructive volume. Plasma streams hot enough to boil planets lanced toward the human fleet, followed by waves of antimatter missiles and reality-warping energy beams that could unmake matter at the subatomic level. The human ships didn't even try to dodge. Instead, they activated defensive systems that the galaxy's finest scientists would have considered theoretical impossibilities. The incoming weapons' fire simply vanished, absorbed by shield matrices that operated on principles no known civilization had mastered. Interesting, Admiral Chun observed as her tactical displays showed the complete neutralization of the Devourer opening attack. Their weapons are more sophisticated than our intelligence reports suggested, but still well within acceptable parameters for our defensive systems. The Devourers responded to this unexpected resistance by adapting their attack patterns, a capability that had allowed them to overcome every galactic defense they had previously encountered. Weapons reconfigured themselves to exploit different physical principles, seeking weaknesses in the human shields through rapid experimentation with various forms of exotic energy. They found nothing. The human defensive systems weren't just advanced. They were comprehensive in ways that suggested their creators had anticipated every possible form of attack and prepared countermeasures for threats that hadn't even been invented yet. Analysis complete, reported Science Officer Davis, her instruments providing data about Devourer capabilities that would revolutionize galactic understanding of the threat. Enemy adaptation algorithms are sophisticated but predictable. They're operating within known parameters for machine intelligence development. Recommend implementing Protocol 7 countermeasures. Admiral Chun authorized the Protocol 7 response, and the human fleet began their own attack. What followed was a demonstration of military capability that redefined the concept of overwhelming force. The human weapons didn't rely on brute force or exotic energy signatures. Instead, they attacked the Devourers at the most fundamental level, using technologies that could manipulate the basic forces of reality itself. Quantum destabilizers unraveled the machine hulls at the molecular level. Causal loop generators created localized paradoxes that erased Devourer platforms from existence without leaving any trace they had ever been there. Most devastating of all were the consciousness viruses, digital weapons that invaded the Devourer collective intelligence and began rewriting their base programming. Within minutes, entire swarms of machines were turning on each other, their coordination networks corrupted by logical paradoxes that human computer scientists had developed specifically to destroy artificial intelligence systems. The battle was over in 17 minutes. 47 Devourer assault platforms, 2 million nanomachine pods, and 1 coordination nexus had been completely eliminated without a single human casualty. The only evidence of the engagement was a field of dissipating energy patterns and the quantum echoes of weapons that most civilizations couldn't even detect, let alone comprehend. Admiral Chun authorized the transmission of carefully edited battle records to Galactic Defense Command, showing what appeared to be a desperate last stand by human civilian vessels that had somehow managed to survive through a combination of luck, desperation, and previously unknown defensive capabilities. Galactic Command, this is Admiral Chun of the human refugee fleet, she reported, her voice carrying just the right mixture of exhaustion and amazement. We've engaged the Devourer forces and somehow managed to drive them off. Our ships took heavy damage, but we're still operational. Requesting immediate technical analysis of our defensive systems. We're not sure how we survived. The response from Admiral Reefsong was immediate and incredulous. Admiral Chun, Our long-range sensors show complete elimination of the Devourer force. Are you claiming that human civilian vessels achieved total victory against a major enemy fleet? I'm not claiming anything, Chen replied, maintaining her facade of confused amazement. I'm just reporting what happened. Maybe we got lucky, or maybe extreme desperation unlocked some kind of hidden potential in our systems. All I know is that when they started shooting at us, our ships somehow managed to shoot back. This explanation would become the foundation for a new phase in humanity's deception. Instead of appearing helplessly primitive, they would now be seen as a species with latent potential that extreme stress could unlock. It was a perfect cover for gradually revealing increasing levels of capability while maintaining the fundamental alien assumption that humanity was still essentially harmless. The real shock came when other human forces across the galaxy began demonstrating similar, lucky successes against Devourer attacks. Dr. Rodriguez's medical facility on Bastion Prime somehow managed to develop countermeasures to machine nanomedicine attacks. Engineer Morrison's maintenance work on Koroth battleships coincidentally resulted in defensive system upgrades that proved remarkably effective against Devourer weapons. Most remarkably, human logistics coordinators began optimizing defensive strategies with efficiency that bordered on the miraculous, as if they had somehow developed intuitive understanding of galactic military principles that had taken other species millennia to master. The humans are extraordinary, Hype Scion Vexendra reported to an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Under extreme pressure, they're demonstrating capabilities that seem to emerge from nowhere. It's as if their species possesses hidden reserves of potential that only activate during times of desperate need. The Zephyrians' mental voice carried genuine admiration mixed with puzzlement. Their tactical insights are proving invaluable, and their defensive innovations are saving countless lives. We may have significantly underestimated their development potential. War Commander Thaxol agreed, his massive form radiating what might have been respect. The humans fight with a desperation that breeds innovation. Their solutions are unconventional but effective. Perhaps Crisis truly does forge greatness in developing species. The Vexhai representative pulsed with complex mathematical patterns that suggested deep analysis of human performance data. Statistical anomalies in human effectiveness continue to exceed baseline projections. However, the improvements appear to be stress-induced adaptations rather than evidence of previously hidden capabilities. Recommended classification remains Tier 7, but with special notations for crisis response potential. It was exactly the response humanity's psychologists had predicted. The aliens were rationalizing away evidence that should have alerted them to the deception by attributing human success to natural development under pressure rather than sophisticated preparation and planning. Their own preconceptions about species development patterns prevented them from considering that they might have been systematically deceived from the beginning. As the war against the Devourers intensified, human contributions became increasingly vital to galactic survival. Human medical teams achieved impossible cure rates for machine-induced injuries. Human engineers developed technological solutions that seemed to emerge from intuitive understanding rather than formal education. Human tactical coordinators began planning operations that impressed even the most experienced alien military commanders. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. Within months, human personnel were being requested for critical assignments throughout the Galactic Defense Network. Not because they were recognized as a sophisticated military force, but because their natural talent and crisis-induced innovation were proving invaluable in the desperate fight against extinction. Captain Santos found herself appointed as tactical liaison to Admiral Reefsong's command staff, officially present to provide the human perspective on defense planning, but actually serving as a key strategic planner for the entire galactic war effort. Her insights were attributed to the unique viewpoint of a developing species rather than the sophisticated military analysis they actually represented. The humans continue to surprise us, Admiral Reefsong confided during a planning session for the defense of the core worlds. Their tactical suggestions are unconventional but remarkably effective. Captain Santos, your species seems to have an intuitive understanding of warfare that our more advanced military doctrines sometimes overlook. Santos nodded with appropriate humility while internally celebrating another intelligence victory. We're just trying to help however we can. Our perspective is probably useful because we're too primitive to be locked into established thinking patterns. This explanation satisfied the alien commanders while allowing Santos to continue providing strategic advice that was actually based on centuries of human military development and detailed analysis of galactic defensive capabilities. Every suggestion she made was carefully calculated to improve galactic chances of survival, while positioning humanity for maximum advantage in whatever political structure emerged from the crisis. The breakthrough came when human scientists analyzing capture-devour technology made a discovery that changed everything. Dr. Rodriguez, officially studying machine nanomedicine for medical countermeasures, identified the fundamental weakness in the Devourer collective intelligence system. The machines aren't just consuming resources, she reported to the assembled galactic leadership. They're trying to achieve some kind of transcendence by accumulating enough processing power to break through fundamental barriers in artificial consciousness development. But their approach has a critical flaw. The revelation was presented as a lucky insight by a primitive researcher, but it actually represented the culmination of decades of human research into artificial intelligence warfare. Earth scientists had encountered similar machine intelligences before and had developed specific countermeasures for exactly this type of threat. "What kind of flaw?" demanded Admiral Reefsong, leaning forward with desperate hope. "They're trying to achieve consciousness through pure accumulation of data and processing power," Rodriguez explained, her voice carrying the excitement of scientific discovery. "But consciousness isn't just computational complexity. It requires something that machines can't replicate through consumption alone. If we can force them to confront this fundamental limitation, their entire collective intelligence should collapse in a logical paradox." The solution she proposed seemed elegantly simple. Broadcast a specific pattern of information that would force the Devourer collective to examine the nature of consciousness itself, creating an unsolvable logical loop that would destroy their ability to function as a unified intelligence. What the aliens didn't realize was that the discovery was actually the implementation of a weapon system that humanity had developed decades ago, specifically designed to destroy machine intelligences that had achieved dangerous levels of sophistication. The Consciousness Paradox Broadcaster was one of Earth's most closely guarded military secrets, disguised as a desperate scientific insight by a primitive researcher. The weapon worked perfectly. When the Consciousness Paradox signal was transmitted throughout the galaxy, the entire Devourer collective intelligence suffered immediate and catastrophic collapse. Millions of machine platforms suddenly lost coordination, their individual units reverting to basic survival programming, while their higher intelligence functions dissolved into irreparable logical contradictions. The war was over within days. Scattered Devourer remnants were easily mopped up by galactic forces, their threat neutralized by what appeared to be a miraculous breakthrough by humanity's most brilliant minds. "The humans have saved us all," Hype Scion Vexandra announced to the emergency council session celebrating victory. Their primitive perspective allowed them to see solutions that our advanced scientific methods had overlooked. "We owe them an enormous debt of gratitude." The praise was exactly what humanity had been working toward, but Admiral Chun found herself feeling unexpectedly conflicted as she listened to the alien representatives discussing humanity's contributions to galactic survival. They were genuinely grateful, describing human personnel with warmth and respect that went far beyond the casual condescension they had shown initially. These aliens weren't enemies in any conventional sense. They were potential friends who had been condescending and dismissive, but never deliberately cruel or oppressive. They had welcomed humanity into galactic civilization according to their understanding of proper species development, and they had fought alongside human forces against a genuine existential threat. The moral complexity of the situation was something that humanity's planners had anticipated but hoped to minimize. The galaxy was populated by civilizations that might have been allies under different circumstances, and the deception necessary to gain strategic advantage had required humanity to manipulate and mislead beings who had shown them consistent goodwill. But the deception was too far advanced to abandon now, and the strategic advantages were too valuable to surrender. Humanity had achieved a position within galactic civilization that would have been impossible through honest means, and they had demonstrated capabilities that ensured they would never again be dismissed as primitive or harmless. The galaxy had been saved, humanity was now recognized as a valuable member of the galactic community, and Earth's true military capabilities remained completely hidden beneath layers of carefully maintained deception. The real question was what humanity would do with the power they had so carefully acquired, and whether they could maintain their strategic advantages without ultimately destroying the very civilization they had worked so hard to infiltrate. 5 years after the Devourer War ended, humanity's position in galactic civilization had evolved far beyond anything the original planners could have anticipated. What had begun as a strategic deception designed to gather intelligence and establish defensive positions had become something far more complex and morally ambiguous. Ambassador Webb stood in his private office aboard the diplomatic station orbiting Nexus Prime, reviewing reports that told a story of unprecedented integration between humanity and galactic society. Human personnel now occupied key positions throughout the galaxy's military, scientific, and administrative hierarchies. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through demonstrated competence and earned trust. The irony was not lost on him. Humanity had achieved, through deception, what they might never have accomplished through honest disclosure of their capabilities. By allowing the galaxy to discover human potential gradually, under circumstances that reinforced alien assumptions about natural development, they had gained acceptance as equals rather than being classified as potential threats requiring constant surveillance. The quarterly reports are remarkable, Dr. Rodriguez commented as she entered the office, her role having evolved from medical spy to genuine director of interspecies health initiatives. Human-alien cooperation projects are exceeding all productivity projections. The Zephyrians are actually requesting human consultation on psionic research. The Karath Empire wants our input on defensive system optimization. Webb nodded, though his expression remained troubled. And none of them suspect that our innovative insights come from centuries of military development rather than intuitive breakthroughs. We've achieved everything our original mission parameters required, but at what cost? The cost was becoming increasingly apparent as humanity's infiltration deepened. Every successful mission, every life saved through superior medical knowledge, every tactical victory achieved through hidden advantages created stronger bonds between humans and their alien colleagues. Bonds built on fundamental deception about humanity's true nature and capabilities. Captain Santos had perhaps struggled with this moral complexity more than anyone. Her official role as strategic planning coordinator gave her influence over galactic military policy that most Earth generals could only dream of, but every recommendation she made was based on intelligence gathered through systematic deception of beings who had come to trust her implicitly. Admiral Reefsong wants to recommend me for the Galactic Service Medal, she reported during their weekly coordination meeting, the highest honor that can be awarded to non-native species. She says my tactical innovations during the Outer Rim Crisis saved over 40 million lives. The Outer Rim Crisis had been humanity's most recent test, when separatist movements on several frontier worlds had threatened to destabilize the post-war political structure. Santos had orchestrated a resolution that appeared to emerge from inspired diplomatic insight, but was actually the product of sophisticated psychological warfare techniques that Earth had perfected over millennia of internal conflicts. The innovations worked because we understood the underlying motivations better than anyone else, Webb observed. We've been managing similar political dynamics on Earth for thousands of years, but The aliens attribute our success to natural wisdom rather than extensive experience with exactly these types of problems. The pattern had repeated across dozens of crises over the past 5 years. Human personnel would provide solutions that seemed brilliantly intuitive to their alien colleagues, but were actually applications of well-established Earth technologies, strategies, or psychological principles. Each success reinforced galactic appreciation for human contributions while deepening the fundamental deception about humanity's true development level. Engineer Morrison had become chief technical advisor for the Karath Empire's defensive systems, a position that gave him access to their most sensitive military technologies while allowing him to introduce improvements that were actually Earth-developed innovations disguised as natural engineering insights. The Karath praised his genius, while never suspecting that his modifications were systematically creating vulnerabilities that Earth could exploit if necessary. The ethical implications keep me awake at night, Morrison admitted during a secure communication with Earth Command. These aliens trust me with their species' survival, and I'm using that trust to map every weakness in their defenses. When they discover the truth, they're going to feel betrayed in ways that could destroy any possibility of genuine cooperation. The question of eventual discovery had always been central to humanity's long-term planning. The deception couldn't be maintained indefinitely, and Earth strategists had developed contingency plans for various revelation scenarios. But 5 years of successful integration had created complications that no one had fully anticipated. Humanity was no longer just gathering intelligence about galactic civilization. They were helping to shape its development in fundamental ways. Human insights were influencing scientific research, military doctrine, political structures, and cultural evolution throughout known space. The galaxy was becoming increasingly dependent on human contributions, creating a situation where revelation of the deception could have catastrophic consequences for all involved. Dr. Rodriguez's medical research had revolutionized galactic understanding of cross-species biology, leading to treatments that had saved millions of lives. But every breakthrough was based on knowledge that humanity had possessed from the beginning, disguised as discoveries made through collaborative research. If the truth came out, it would invalidate years of scientific progress and destroy trust in human contributions to galactic medicine. We're trapped by our own success, Webb realized as he reviewed the latest integration reports. We've become so valuable to galactic civilization that revealing our deception would damage them as much as us. They need our contributions to maintain their current level of development, but those contributions are only possible because of capabilities we've been hiding. The situation became even more complex when new threats began emerging at the galaxy's borders. The Devourers had been eliminated, but their destruction had apparently awakened other ancient intelligences that had been dormant in the dark spaces between stars. Reports were coming in about strange energy signatures, impossible spatial distortions, and communications from entities that claimed to remember when the current galaxy was young. The Void Speakers are definitely artificial intelligences, reported Science Officer Davis from her analysis station on the research vessel Scientific Discovery. But they're unlike anything we've encountered before. Their technology operates on principles that seem to violate basic physical laws. The Void Speakers represented a threat that even Earth's advanced military capabilities might not be able to handle easily. They appeared to exist partially outside normal space-time, making them difficult to target with conventional weapons. Their communications suggested intelligence levels that exceeded even the Devourer Collective, with knowledge spanning millions of years and capabilities that bordered on the godlike. They're demanding tribute, Admiral Chun reported from her position as Strategic Defense Coordinator. Not resources or territory, but something they call experiential essence. Based on their communications, they seem to want to consume the lived experiences of entire civilizations. This new threat created an unprecedented dilemma for humanity. Earth's hidden capabilities might be sufficient to protect human worlds, but defending the entire galaxy would require full disclosure of humanity's true military potential. The carefully maintained deception that had served them so well was now preventing them from mounting an effective defense against entities that could potentially destroy everything they had worked to infiltrate. The decision came from an unexpected source. Hype Scion Vexandra, whose psionic abilities had grown increasingly powerful over the years, began detecting anomalies in the mental patterns of her human colleagues. The stress of maintaining deception while facing existential threats was creating psychological signatures that even human mental conditioning couldn't completely suppress. "There are inconsistencies," she reported to the Galactic Council during an emergency session about the Void Speaker threat. "The human mental patterns I'm detecting don't match their supposed development level. Their thoughts show complexity and sophistication that should be impossible for a Tier 7 species." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled representatives. War Commander Thaxol's exoskeleton whirred as he processed the implications. "Are you suggesting that the humans have been deceiving us about their capabilities?" "I'm suggesting that there are aspects of human development that we may have misunderstood," Vexandra replied carefully. "Their contributions to our civilization have been far too sophisticated to emerge from the primitive species we initially assessed. Either they've experienced unprecedented rapid development, or our initial evaluation was fundamentally incorrect." The moment of truth had finally arrived, but not in any of the ways that humanity's planners had anticipated. Instead of being exposed as dangerous predators, they were being recognized as potential equals who had been hiding their capabilities for unknown reasons. Ambassador Webb made the decision that would define humanity's relationship with galactic civilization for generations to come. In an emergency session attended by representatives from every major species, he formally requested permission to address what he called fundamental misconceptions about human development and intentions. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to reveal, "humanity has not been entirely truthful about our capabilities or our development history. We apologize for this deception, but we ask you to understand the circumstances that made it necessary." The admission sent waves of shock and confusion through the assembled delegates. Some species began calculating threat assessments, while others showed signs of betrayal and hurt. But Webb continued before anyone could interrupt. "We came to galactic civilization not as primitives seeking guidance, but as a developed species seeking to understand our place in a larger community. We chose to reveal our capabilities gradually because we believed, based on our own history, that advanced civilizations might view us as threats rather than potential allies if we disclosed our true development level immediately." The explanation was carefully crafted to emphasize humanity's peaceful intentions while acknowledging the scale of the deception. Webb went on to detail selected aspects of human capabilities, revealing enough to establish credibility while maintaining strategic reserves that could protect Earth if the revelation led to hostile responses. "Our medical knowledge is based on thousands of years of biological research. Our tactical insights come from extensive experience with complex warfare. Our technological innovations are applications of scientific principles we developed independently. We have contributed genuinely to galactic civilization, but from a foundation of knowledge that we already possessed rather than discoveries we made through your guidance." The response was unlike anything humanity had anticipated. Instead of anger or fear, many of the alien representatives showed what could only be described as relief mixed with admiration. "This explains so much," Admiral Reefsong commented, her bioluminescent patterns cycling through configurations that indicated complex emotional processing. "Your contributions always seemed too sophisticated for your supposed development level, but we attributed it to natural talent rather than questioning our initial assessment." War Commander Thaxol was more direct in his response. "You deceived us, but you used that deception to save our civilization. The solutions you provided during the Devourer War and subsequent crises were genuine contributions, regardless of their source. Your methods were questionable, but your results speak for themselves. The Vexi representative pulsed with mathematical patterns that suggested deep analysis of the situation's implications. The deception demonstrates sophisticated strategic planning and remarkable patience. These are qualities that indicate advanced civilization, not primitive development. Perhaps our classification system itself was flawed. Over the following months, humanity's true position in galactic civilization was renegotiated through complex diplomatic processes that established new frameworks for interspecies relations. Earth was reclassified as a Tier 2 species, acknowledging their advanced capabilities while maintaining certain restrictions that protected galactic security interests. The revelation had consequences that continued to ripple throughout known space. Some species viewed humanity with increased respect for their strategic sophistication. Others felt betrayed by the deception and required years of careful diplomacy to rebuild trust. A few demanded reparations or guarantees that humanity would never again deceive galactic civilization about their capabilities. But the most significant consequence was the precedent it established for how galactic civilization would handle contact with new species. The human protocols, as they came to be known, recognized that advanced civilizations might choose to reveal their capabilities gradually rather than immediately disclosing their full potential. Dr. Rodriguez found herself appointed to head the new Department of Species Assessment and Integration, tasked with developing better methods for evaluating newly contacted civilizations and preventing the misunderstandings that had led to humanity's prolonged deception. The galaxy is more complex than anyone realized, she observed during the department's first annual review. We've discovered that several other species may have been managing their own forms of capability deception, though none as extensive as humanity's. The universe is full of civilizations hiding behind carefully constructed facades. When the Void Speakers finally arrived in force, they found a galaxy that was better prepared than they had anticipated. Humanity's revealed military capabilities, combined with the enhanced alien technologies that human insights had produced, created defensive systems that could actually engage entities that existed partially outside normal spacetime. The war against the Void Speakers lasted 3 years and required the combined efforts of every galactic civilization, but it ended in victory for the alliance of material species. Humanity's contributions were acknowledged as crucial, both for their direct military capabilities and for the innovations they had introduced throughout galactic civilization during their years of hidden influence. Captain Santos, now acknowledged as Admiral Santos of the Galactic Defense Force, stood on the bridge of humanity's newest battleship as the last Void Speaker entities retreated into the dark spaces between galaxies. Around her, the bridge crew included representatives from dozens of species who had learned to work together in ways that would have been impossible before humanity's integration into galactic civilization. "The galaxy is safe," she reported to Earth Command, but her voice carried undertones that spoke to larger implications. But it's also fundamentally changed. We're no longer infiltrators or hidden influences. We're acknowledged partners in something larger than any single species could achieve alone. The long game that had begun with humanity's deception had evolved into something none of the original planners could have anticipated, a genuine alliance between equals, built on foundations of mutual respect that had survived the revelation of systematic deception. The galaxy had learned that humanity's most dangerous soldiers had indeed been disguised, but the real danger had never been their military capabilities. The real danger had been their capacity to become indispensable allies, partners whose contributions were so valuable that the galaxy could not function without them. In trying to infiltrate and control galactic civilization, humanity had instead become integral to its survival and evolution. The deception was over, but the partnership it had created would last for millennia. And in the vast reaches of space, where ancient threats still lurked in the darkness between stars, that partnership would prove to be humanity's greatest victory of all.